Hi everybody. Yeah, I'm Rebecca Coley. I'm head of planning and development at Trafford Council. As Steve said, this is a development management-led code, which I'll come on to a bit more. First of all, for those who don't know where Trafford is, we're the kind of south-west quadrant of Greater Manchester. You can see Manchester City Centre at the top of there, and down with Trafford Park, and we've got Sale, Altrincham. Altringham's our main town centre where the market is, which people will have heard of. We've got rural areas. We basically have an entire transect of a conurbation from high density terraces and increasingly high density towers in the regional centre through extensive suburbs out to rural areas. So we've got a bit of everything really. We've produced a digital-first borough-wide code and a master plan through the Design Code Pathfinders programme, and I'll show you a bit of both of those. At the moment, our master plan is near the Manchester United ground, the Old Trafford. So we're eagerly anticipating the conclusions of the task force, because I suspect that's going to push that even further. So there'll be more work to do on that. Yeah, we've got both the Old Traffords, we've got the football, we've got the cricket, and then our office sits in the middle of them. So right in the middle of all of that. Our design code was written by us as development management officers. We might have moved on from being case officers, all of us pretty much, including me, but we have all been on the front line of DM, and we have all determined everything from house extensions to major apps in our careers. So we really, you know, that's our baseline really. Happy to produce the digital platform for us, which we'll show you. Dan Bowler is also who helped us, is also an urban designer, so we got some of that advice as well, and they've done the graphics and they've done the hosting and the maintenance. I'll start with some of the challenges for development management in Trafford, and they all run from one thing, and that is that developers pay way too much for land. Every single time they buy a site, they pay too much for it. That underpins absolutely all the issues that we have around planning. So you get maximisation rather than optimisation. Layouts are squeezed and poured. You get far too much height for context. You get no detailing, the wrong proportions. You get poor relationship with neighbours. We have buildings sat on car parks on stilts because they're desperately trying to get as much density on as possible. No landscaping, no articulation, and poor quality materials. I mean, there's more, and fundamentally they all run from the fact that they have paid sometimes 5 times more for the land than they should have done, and that is not an easy issue to deal with and to get past. But the starting point for our design code was what are the issues that we are experiencing, and what are some, you know, fairly simple but effective tools to address some of those issues, and how do we code them, and how do we put them into a form which might start to make some difference, which may or may not affect land value in the end, but at least sets our expectations out when that's starting, that process is starting. So we're thinking about why applications are refused, thinking about why some applications hadn't been refused, which we'd have liked to refuse, but maybe the officer didn't feel that they could quite articulate why it should be refused, and the tool was there for that officer to do that and to get that, or you know, or not refuse, actually, you know, seek amendments and improve schemes to get them to be approvable, and also thinking about a bit about enforceability and what will give us the best results for the least amount of written effort effectively. Both those schemes are in Trafford. The bottom one effectively was so derided by the corporate team that it gave me carte blanche to go off and write a design code. So actually I'll put up with it because everybody thinks it's in Manchester anyway. So there we go. Right. So our code and if anyone's seen this, I'm not going to linger on too much to this because anybody can go and have a look at my code, and I've spoken about what it looks like many times. So a lot of people have probably seen this before. So it's digital first. It's both mobile, computer friendly. You have to, with a digital code, have to be able to put out a PDF because your members have to approve something tangible, and that has to be a document that's appended to cabinet or executive reports. Behind our digital code sits a massive spreadsheet, basically, which then gets pulled into the code, but it also means that we can amend that and update that. And at the moment, while we've got a consultation draft version published, we've got a mirror site effectively with our what will become our adopted code, which we are still changing and updating for the point that we adopt it. So there are not that the public can't get into the later version, but there are 2 of those exist at the moment. The code is based on you click, you see what you need to see, you don't see what you don't want to see. Conditional logic, you are only directed to what you need. You can read it cover to cover. You can generate the PDF if you want to read it to cover if you want to. And some architects might want to do that. And so I think some architects have done that, but not everybody will need to or want to do that. So you can focus on the bits that you want. Each of those icons on there on the website takes users to different bits of the code, and then you move through it logically afterwards. And again, you've got this index design code context, so everything has a number, so we know which one we're referring to. And I'll come on to show you how that's being used in practice. You've got a code, basically what you need to do, a description, why you need to do it, and a compliance, how you do it. So each of those things are set out for each of the codes, and that helps in terms of compliance and checking compliance at the end of the process. So I'm now going to focus a bit on how it's been helping us through the DM process. We haven't adopted the code yet, but one of the things we've been saying to developers is that there's not a huge amount in the code that we haven't been asking for at least the past 2 or 3 years anyway. We've just written it down. So it is really starting to come into new schemes. So this is a scheme, and I've realised in retrospect I probably should have shown you the previous proposal on this site, which were awful, and were dismissed at appeal on design grounds. And the developer could not believe we'd refused it on design grounds. So we're like, what? Because it was just a volume house builder layout, that you see anywhere, and we just thought, well, it's just acontextual and not good enough, and we won that appeal. Anyway, they then appointed an architect, and they picked up the design code and they've run with it. And I'll show you some bits of their DAS next. But generally, we are seeing a positive effect on design outcomes. We're seeing the starting point being higher from a fairly low bar, to be honest. The use of architects rather than plan drawers or even worse QSs to draw up schemes, real understanding of context, character of what makes a place tick and work. Getting more street trees, NPPF really helps with that anyway. General more landscaping in and around the site, and layouts they're becoming genuinely landscaped led. Better proportions. The thing is with proportions is you just have to tell them why they're wrong, and then they're unless it's an MMC model, they're one of the easiest things to fix. And also in terms of details and articulation, and also things taking less time because it's their first time or second time, not on the 10th time of asking when they finally either give in or get what you're telling them to do. And we're winning appeals, not on the back of the design code at the moment, but on the back of the principles that are in it. We win 80% of our appeals. We win pretty much all of our appeals on design grounds, because we now have the tools to articulate what is wrong with schemes and why these schemes are unacceptable. And our appeal record is excellent, and we're really very proud of it. And the tool, the design code, is the tool that helps the officers say what it is that it makes a scheme harmful and unacceptable. And we're in the tilted balance as well. So this is not a straight balance. This is a tilted balance authority. So there are harms, and we are saying why they are, and they are outweighing the benefits, even on big schemes like the one there. Um, so this is what we got with the scheme, and I've given you, if you want to go and have a look, the reference number is there, and our link to our public access system is there, so if you want to go and have a look at the whole of this, because it is quite interesting. So the architects took the design code, and the architects, a local architect called Calder Peel, and they decided that they would use this scheme to as a bit of an exercise for them to show how they would put a design access statement together on the back of the Trafford design code. So they spent probably a bit more time than they would normally, but then they've got an example that they can then show that's been successful and that they can show that works. You know, they only have to do this once. They can then replicate the thinking once. They can then replicate the model through different schemes. It's quite good. So they go through and they show each of the codes and they show how everything feeds into it. So this is the initial concept master plan, so thinking about all the elements of the code and the context and identity in this particular one. And then this one is about, again, articulation, which is so they're taking the context. So they're all buildings that are in the surrounding area. So sort of typical edge of suburb, edge of inner area kind of place. It's basically a 30 suburb with some earlier Victorian development dotted around, and taking those elements and seeing how they work and pulling those out as things that are not for pastiching. This is very much not a pastiche scheme, but that serve the right proportions and serve the context and make it feel like the right development. And then here, they've taken those. You can see again the codes on the top left-hand corner with the building materials. You can see some of those proportions that have been taken from the previous slide, and then there's some analysis of how all that is sat into the detailed building design. I mean, this is just 3 extracts from what is probably one of the biggest design access statements we've ever had, and I think the intention from Calder Peel as well is to try and get that down a bit. You know, this was the first go onto a big code, and it probably could be simplified further. But the attention to detail and the effort that went into it, you know, it was a code compliant scheme. We could tell members it was a code compliant scheme and show them how it was in many ways, and it was granted unanimously at planning committee last week. And wasn't in the system for that long. It was a 60-unit scheme, and was dealt with. So hopefully we will see that built out. But from going from absolutely not to members saying this is one of the best schemes we've ever seen in the space of a year is really positive, and it is the design code that has done that. They knew they had to come with us on design. There wasn't any alternative, and they picked that up and they did it. So just a couple of examples of what I'm calling pre-app. Really, that's when somebody emails me and says, "Can I have a high-level chat about this site?" I don't, just what's your sense of it? I don't want any detail. I'm not going to hold you to anything, but what might I want to think about? This is the Wharfside Master Plan. This is the area near Manchester United, which you can see the stadium at the bottom of the picture on that slide. The master plan will be part of the Trafford Design Code as a kind of bolt-on, but it's coming forward slightly behind the remainder of the document for a couple of reasons. One, Matt's colleagues asked her to do this kind of halfway through the Pathfinder programme, so it was behind anyway. And secondly, we do need to see what's going on with United, specifically for that very big piece of green space, which is meant to link the Imperial War Museum and Manchester United. So whatever they choose to do might mean that swings around. We don't know. But the whole idea of the Wharfside Master Plan is it's parameter based, it's DM based. It's how you're applying the TDC concepts and the parameters to an area of the borough which we're expecting to undergo transformational change. In that area that you can see predominantly in the master plan, that can accommodate up to 5,000 new homes. So that's it's a significant area and a significant part of our land supply. But the master plan, even though again this is only a consultation draft, and I've given the links there, it's on the website. Again, it's on a digital platform, so you can go and have a look at it. It's framing those initial conversations and then into formal pre-apps. So some of these sites, we've got developer interest in them. Some of them have had some developer interest for a long time, and we're able to say these are our expectations. This is, we're not saying that the Warside Master Plan is the only way you can bring the site forward. It's one way, but some things are fixed, some things are guidance, but it gives those expectations. So you look at this slide here. So this is the height plan, and there's also got some uses on it as well. So you can see that there's a definite idea there to cluster the height in the centre around the area of open space. Now, there's a reason. One of the reasons for that is a bit of an equalisation strategy. That if you give up quite a large amount of your site for public space, you get more height. So in terms of viability, you get more away. But also in townscape and skyline terms, we want Warside to look like a coherent place, even though each of those plots that you can see outlined in red could come forward independently as a developer brings them forward, because a lot of them are owned independently. So the master plan gives the thing that links everything together to form the coherent whole, yet doesn't require a particular phasing strategy, doesn't require any CPO, but just gives that guidance. And we've been, talking to people about lots of these plots and saying this is what it is. Get a good architect on board. It's as I say, some things are fixed in terms of some links, but then the links, for example, if they go 2 meters one way or 2 meters the other way to the west or further, as long as the principle of that and the vision is delivered, then that that will be okay. And again, you've got these more detailed parameter plans. And this shows one way which this particular plot could be developed. But again, if it comes forward in a way that delivers the same principles, then that would be okay. But there's some certainty and there's been some understanding. And we've had some comments back from developers, and they've all said, well, can we not go even taller, most of them? I was thinking, okay, 30 stories might be enough, but never is enough, is it? So in terms of compliance, we are working at the moment on a digital compliance checklist, which we want to combine with our planning application validation checklist later in the year. But we've had some feedback around, just generally, not as part of the consultation, but just generally from some architects and other interested parties, that we need to watch our unintended consequences really of a compliance checklist, that they can almost be a way of levering a scheme into the code which isn't actually compliant, but they just say it is. So we're thinking quite carefully about how that might work. What we want it to do really, and again, thinking about what the wider consequences and unintended consequences of this might be, is to narrow the issues down so that an officer can go and look through the checklist and say, right, okay, I've looked at all of these. I agree that all these fit. These two don't. How are we going to address these? Or in the balance, is it all right anyway? However, coming back to land value and maxing rather than optimization, quite often when we try and fix issues in schemes in the DM process, we cause other ones because there's an unwillingness to reduce any quantum. So say you've got a separation distance, which is a very simple example. You've got separation distances which is far too short on one part of the site, and you say, no, I'm sorry, you need more there. It's very substandard to neighbouring properties, and we're much more bothered about existing properties than within the site where there's a lot more flexibility. Can you fix that? And they say yes, and they go off and fix that. And the way they fix that is by putting 3 extra stories on the front, for example. And then you are, well, now your height's wrong at the front. But then we're told we're being inconsistent, but we're not. They're just causing a different issue. So they say, well, you didn't say that last time that height was too much. Well, it wasn't. because your development was over there and now it's over there. So, and I'm sure you all come across that kind of thing. It's not uncommon. So we need to make sure our compliance checklist doesn't kind of allow that swapping of issues or accusations of, well, you said that was absolutely fine when you did the compliance checklist and now it's not. Well, it's not because you've changed the scheme, to really sort of feed into it. So thinking about that. Just finally, to wrap up what's next for us, we've done our viability consultation. We're collating and responding to the consultation responses. We've got quite a lot back on that, particularly from the volume house builders about viability and about numbers of plots. And again, coming back to land value, we're doing our final amendments on the Mirror digital platform. We have made changes to our code. There are a few things that we have changed or dropped from it on the basis of consultation. We haven't just gone, no, we know best, this is what we're doing. There are definitely some things that have come out or have been significantly amended. We've been invited by Vistry to go and see MMC, Modern Methods of Construction, in practice at their a site in Warrington at their factory, so that we can understand how design codes can fit with MMC and how that might, there might be some delivery around that. So that'll be interesting. We're going to adopt it executive in July, not the Warside Master Plan, because as I said, that's following a bit behind. And it will be a supplementary planning document, because at the moment there are no supplementary plans. It needs to have some weight, and my view is that the MPPF wording on making decisions in accordance with local design codes gives it the weight that it needs to have. And also just the general MPPF on design, as I say, we are winning appeals on design anyway. So the code will just give that more weight rather than less. We probably will adopt it as a supplementary plan at some point, but we need that legislation to be in place first of all. So that's it for me. Again, just some links there for you. Thank you very much for listening, and happy to take any questions.